for being here. Good morning. My name is Christina Lachaga, and I'm honored to be your moderator for today's momentous occasion, the launch of the European Union WYDE Women's Leadership Initiative. Thank you all for being here to help us celebrate the launch of this very important and needed initiative for women's participation in leadership around the world. I am a recording artist, host, and most importantly, a passionate advocate for women's and girls' empowerment, a sentiment that I'm sure all of us in this room and attending CSW 60-day share. Being invited into the room and getting a seat at the table is one of the biggest challenges for women and young women today. Persistent barriers to women's equal and effective participation in decision-making arise from deeply rooted and unequal power relations. These underpin discriminatory laws, policies, and institutions, and feed widespread violence against women in politics. Despite women's increased engagement in public life at all levels, change is slow. The gender gap persists at all levels and spheres of decision-making. Funded by the European Union, the WYDE Women Leadership Initiative will be jointly implemented by UN Women, the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, International IDEA, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, IPU, and United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG. Over 3 years, the 4 partners will support the EU's shared ambition to enhance progress towards achieving SDG 5's gender equality goals, as well as to leverage collective action, partnerships, coordination, knowledge, and resources at a global level to promote the full and effective participation in decision-making of diverse women, especially those most often left furthest behind, through social norms change, networking, and global advocacy. We are joined today by key representatives from each of the WYDE Women Leadership Initiative partners, thanks for being here, that are coming together to make the powerful initiative possible. And in a bit, I'm very excited about this, we will be having an exciting conversation with all of you surrounding social norms change. And we're looking forward to hearing your unique perspectives, your experiences, your challenges. So get ready for that. We'll be excited to have you included in this conversation with us. Without further ado, I am incredibly honored to introduce EU Commissioner Jutta Urpilainen. Please direct your attention to the screen for a special video message from the Commissioner. Thank you.
Dear friends, last week we celebrated International Women's Day. What the women aspire to is equality in civic life, decision-making, and the society. And that's why I am delighted to launch the Women Leadership Program today. It's a pillar of the EU's Women and Youth in Democracy initiative, which is devoted to empowering young people and women. Through WYDE, we commit to fostering democratic engagement in all its forms, from civic involvement to non-partisan engagement, and from peaceful activism to the pursuit of political careers. Our flagship initiative supports youth-led movements seeking electoral reform. In addition, it assists young women in politics, whether it's in local municipalities or national parliaments. Colleagues, for me, this is a personal cause. As someone who started politics as a young woman, I can understand the struggles. It might feel as if women in politics have to work twice as hard as men to be taken seriously. Today, just 26.5% of parliamentarians worldwide are women. Only in 6 countries, 50% of the parliamentarians are women. At the current rate, we will not achieve gender parity in national legislative bodies until 2063. Friends, equal representation of women in political leadership is about diversity, inclusion, and sustainable development. In recent years, we have witnessed the erosion of democratic values. And when democracy is being eroded, women's rights are under attack as well. Protecting democracy means ensuring an open civic and political landscape in which women can participate safely. This is the objective of the Women Leadership Program. I want to thank the many partners in the room: UN Women, International IDEA, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and United Cities and Local Governments. With your help and the help of partners to come, we can empower women and improve democracy.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are very grateful for the support of the European Union in making this initiative possible. And if she were here in person, I would tell her that I absolutely love her jacket. That is pass it along if anyone can. Okay. Now I'd like to turn over the event to Chiara Adamo, Head of Unit for Gender, Human Rights, and Democratic Governance at the Directorate-General for International Partnerships of the European Commission, followed by Sarah Hendricks, Director of Policy, Programs, and Intergovernmental Division at UN Women, and Massimo Tomasoli, Director of Global Programs at International IDEA. Chiara, Sarah, and Massimo, thank you for being here, and you have the floor.
Thank you, and welcome to all. Also, I'll join the Commissioner Pilani to welcome you all here. I will report about the jacket comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's really a pleasure to see a full room. Apologies for those who have to sit on the floor. Really, thank you for this interest, this commitment. It's really an exciting moment, I think, for all of us. We have been building this program for a long time, and today at CSW it is becoming reality. This year CSW theme couldn't be more relevant. We talk about genderless poverty, and indeed we can only tackle poverty in the world through transformative and significant women political participation and gender balance in political and economic arenas. So better gender balance in decision making facilitates policies that address equal pay, improved employment conditions, childcare, fighting and preventing gender-based violence, and recognition of unpaid labor. We heard it this year is an important year. It's an elections year, we used to say. I think some 1.3 billion women will go to vote. And there are so many significant barriers still for women in all their diversity, in all different regions to stand as candidate in elections, but also to simply go and vote and express their right to vote. So today I think it's an important moment. We launched this program on women political participation with 11.5 million euros. It's the component of a broader umbrella program called WYDE, Women and Youth in Democracy Initiative. As you know, we are very strong on acronym. For a 42 million envelope in total, and this is not just a financial program, but it really aims at building a movement, a community of practice, and really champions for political involvement of women and girls. And the accent is really on youth. Youth, from civic engagement of youth to electoral domestic observations, supporting reforms to governance and representation of political parties and parliaments. And I welcome here our member of European Parliament. Thank you for joining us. So WYDE brings together a really diverse coalition from civil society actors to international organizations, local authorities, very importantly, because that's where it starts, and parliamentary networks, all united for democracy, and that's the unique strength of this program, really, to nurture and foster joint efforts and partnership and collaboration among all of us on shared goals. The key of this program is really about challenging social norms, barriers, and stereotypes that limit women's public role, underscoring our stance for democracy and women political engagement. So the goal is clear: achieving political participation of women and girls in all public and political spaces. And that's very much aligned with our broader agenda, the Gender Action Plan, where we did commit to make sure that at least a minimum of 85% of all our actions in external actions do deliver positively for gender equality and women empowerment. At the legislative level, the EU just made a first breakthrough with the political agreement on a law to criminalize cyber violence against women and the most serious forms of cyber harassment, such as deepfakes, in the 27 new member states. And I mention this today because indeed hate speech, misogyny online, particularly directed to those women who stand in public fora, in politics, is a major deterrent for their participation in politics. So we really need to address those barriers hands-on. And unfortunately, in order to do this, we do need data, but we don't have so much data. And for this, we really do count on the contribution of this program to UN Women in particular, to really allow to develop solid evidence base on these barriers. We also count on the partners of you and others to really offer a platform to women in politics for exchange, but also learning and mentorship, and also UCLG and idea to really strengthen women's voices and representation at local governance level. So we stand together and we bring diverse expertise: the EU, UN Women, International IDEA, United Cities and Local Governments, and the Inter-Parliamentary Union. And we are united in our vision, in our determination. So with that, I would like to thank you for your commitment, your partnership, and I give the floor to Christine.
And I will thank you so much, Chiara, and I will pass the floor over to Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This has been a long-awaited day, and one that we're so happy to be here together to celebrate, to launch, to recognize, and to really show the power of partnership in action. So thank you everyone for joining us today in New York, and thank you, Chiara, as well as the partners from International IDEA, from IPU, as well as UCLG, and all the friends and guests and fellow feminists in the room, and especially the young people who are here. Thank you so much for your voice and your energy and your current and future leadership. On behalf of UN Women, I just want to also say that the launch of this project, Advancing Women's Political Participation and Decision-Making Through Social Norms Change, Networking, and Global Advocacy, is a project that we're incredibly excited about and see as something that will be pivotal to the achievement of our strategic plan through the power of partnerships. This 3-year project, with a budget of 11.5 million euros, is being implemented as a part of the EU's Women and Youth and Democracy Initiative, as Chiara just said, launched back in 2023. And this really is about seeking to strengthen the rights, the empowerment, but also the participation in public and political life of youth and women through promoting social norm change. Allow me to also just say a hearty thank you, Chiara, to you for the partnership with the EU. It's been a partnership now from 2012, I believe, almost since UN Women was born. And so we thank the EU for such strong partnership and engagement. We are proud to be working jointly in every region across the globe, not only on women's political participation and leadership, but also on key areas that are part of UN Women's Strategic Plan and also part of the Gender Equality Action Plan 3, or the GAP 3 in the EU. These priorities include violence against women and girls, gender responsive planning and budgeting, women's economic empowerment and financial inclusion, women, peace, and security, as well as tackling the social norms, as well as the gender stereotypes that underpin all of those areas. Our strategic partnership with the European Union is key to delivering change for women and girls on the ground. And wherever I go in UN Women, whether it's Uganda or Senegal or other places all over the world, I hear and see the importance of that partnership in action. Today's launch is the beginning of another chapter in the partnership that will complement UN Women's ongoing global efforts to address the systemic barriers to women's political participation right around the world. As part of this, a really important part of this is the partnership with feminist organizations. And that probably should come out front and center in the discussion, in the framing of this. So it is the partnership, the strengthening of those partnerships with women's feminist organizations, with youth-led organizations, with young women leaders, that is really at the heart of this incredibly ambitious and exciting endeavor. This will be done through networking, through capacity building, through mentorship, and through partnership with feminist movements as well as organizations and youth leaders. We will engage in intergenerational exchanges to promote positive social norms, including with men, with youth, and I hope with all of you here and beyond. And we believe that partnership is really how change happens, especially in this space of political participation and public space. And so we really envisage these partnerships to be the heart of driving change forward. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to the fruitful discussion ahead and to what I hope is a sense of celebration as we kick off and launch this very, very important project. Thank you.
And now I'd like to turn it over to Massimo.
Thank you very much, Christina. On behalf of International IDEA, I want, first of all, to thank all the partners sitting around this table and all the participants in this event. I think that the place where we are holding this launch is very meaningful. The Commission on the Status of Women at the United Nations Conference Building. It is a time when multilateralism is under stress, and I think it is very important to convey the message that there is a high value in strategic partnerships like those that are shown very visibly in this room. And I would like to stress, first of all, that it is the result of a long-standing partnership. We are all partners engaged with each other since a long time. The European Union is very important for International IDEA. We have an exclusive mandate on promoting democracy worldwide, and work on gender equality and democracy has been at the core of the conceptualization of our mandate, I would say. And if we fail to deliver, that is probably the first indicator where we show that we are not relevant. So we have to pay a lot of attention to that. And working with the European Union for us has been also a learning experience. We have been engaged with the European Union in various areas that we cover through our global programs. Electoral processes, constitution building, the analysis of democracy indicators, and also parliamentary strengthening, which is in fact one of the components of this broader WYDE initiative. So thank you very much, Chiara, and I think that this is a very important step toward forging again our partnership in the future. But I want also to thank UN Women. UN Women is the reason, I would say, why at the UN gender equality is visible. And without UN Women, we wouldn't be here probably. That is something we have to recognize, and we have always to remember. UN Women is key in producing knowledge and data, and we have been collaborating on so many in so many respects. For example, I'll give you just one example, the work on indicators on violence against women in politics, which is a new frontier, and allows us to shift the focus from what is visible to what is invisible, because there is a lot of technologically facilitated violence against women that is about the private sphere, the one that is less visible and more difficult to measure. So really, I want to express my appreciation and the appreciation of International IDEA for having the opportunity to work together with UN Women. And the IPU, I think Inter-Parliamentary Union with a global mandate on parliamentarian advancement of policies of more effective and democratic parliaments is a critical element for the success of this initiative. But it has been also a very important partner in advocacy. I've been sitting here in the past as permanent observer to the UN for International IDEA, and with Paddy and the work of the permanent observer for IPU to the UN, I think we managed to influence some important policy conversations, including, together with your women, the one on SDG 5 and the SDG 16, and I would say the whole 2030 agenda. So parliamentary strengthening is key also for this initiative, the junction, the intersection between what somebody called the strong publics and the weak publics that are represented by civil society organizations, by feminist associations, is a very important juncture. That will be the focus of activities. But I would say that both IPU and UN Women also work on the ground, and there is action. You refer to partnership in action. I think that is a very important element for us because we are not relevant unless we impact on the ground, and that is our next partner with the UCLG and the focus on democracy and participation at the subnational level. The UCLG has been one of the users of some of our tools, including the assessment of the quality of democracy at the local level. And I really appreciated having this opportunity to further advance our collaboration. Just one point about substance. I want to provide you with a primer on a new perceptions of democracy survey that will launch in about 1 month from now. It was carried out in 19 countries, and it was based on a representative sample plus an additional sample focused more on marginalized communities. And we wanted to compare expert assessments of the quality of democracy and people's perceptions, especially perceptions by marginalized people. And there are some good news and some bad news, but I want to stress on the bad news because we have to act on them in particular. And when it comes to gender, I think that the perceptions of less effectiveness of democracy in delivery are in 2 areas. One is the rule of law and justice, access to justice. So there is a really distance, a gap between the reality lived by women and the judiciary in many countries. And the other one is freedom of expression. And what is most worrying is that in most countries, out of the 19, probably all of them, there is a gap between the perception of freedom of expression by the broader sample and the one that captures views of women. And these including in democracies, including in the highly performing democratic societies. So there is a lot to do, and I think that this is a very important building block in order to work and change and actually U-turn this trend and get into progress by the year 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimo. Now, thank you, Chiara, Sarah, and Massimo. Now we are going to begin the presentation part of our session. And I'm sure after hearing our opening remarks from our partners, you are going to be so interested in hearing the presentations. So thank you all for joining us this morning, and we're looking forward to hearing more from the partners behind WYDE Women Leadership. So first off, please welcome Julie Ballington. She is the Global Policy Advisor on Political Participation at UN Women. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christina. You're a breath of fresh air, I must say, and perhaps you'll be chairing most of our meetings in the future, so we'll circle back for sure. But thank you, Christina. Hello, colleagues and friends. As mentioned, I'm the Global Policy Advisor on Political Participation, and I've been overseeing UN Women's program development and now implementation of the WYDE program. I share Sarah's excitement launching the program today and thank the European Union wholeheartedly for the support and look forward to the strengthened collaboration with all of our partners around the table. We know structural barriers to women's participation have persisted for centuries and include structural barriers, lack of political will to change the status quo, gender-based violence and harmful social norms. These norms act to keep women out of politics, including through shaping voter perceptions and voting choices. All too often, women are seen as political liabilities, unwelcome to engage in public life, relegated to the domestic domain. These social norms have in many cases been bypassed by the adoption of temporary special measures. The adoption of quota laws around the world has had a profound impact on increasing the representation of women in political life. However, it's not been accompanied by a commensurate change in social norms and perceptions around women's role in political life. While there are no comprehensive global statistics, as others have noted, all evidence points to a regression in social norms in terms of perceptions around women's political participation. For example, a recent survey undertaken by Ipsos polling for King's College London in the UK found that some men under 30 are no more supportive of action on gender equality than older men, and tend to be less accepting of feminism than their older counterparts. 3 in 10 young British men think it'll be harder to be a man than a woman in 20 years. But at the same time, young people are on the front lines advocating on vital global issues like climate change, discrimination and racism, gender-based violence, and exclusion. Youth have a crucial role in promoting positive, transformative change by challenging political and social norms and addressing stereotypes that perpetuate violence against women and girls, whether through direct action, social media, or other campaigns. The time is now to do the most difficult task, which is to tackle social norms. We need to disrupt gender-regressive social norms, and this has really been, I'd say, on our agenda for the last 20, 30 years of those of us working on this, and often it's difficult to really pinpoint what it is that we need to do. But now is the time. We will figure it out. In the Beijing +25 review process in 2030, member states called on all actors to tackle underlying structural barriers and discriminatory practices that hold women back. In response to this call, UN Women supports positive social norms change, including through engaging men and boys as a high leverage mechanism. The WYDE initiative will enable us to strengthen networking and global advocacy, knowledge generation, and transformation of social norms through capacity building and sensitization. Some of the key components for UN Women's work will include increasing direct funding to women's rights and feminist organizations working to combat harmful social norms in the Generation Equality Forum Action Coalition on Feminist Movements, and this will be through a grant mechanism. We will be supporting networking and convening regional dialogues to promote women's participation and intergenerational mentorship and exchanges between women and youth groups, men and boys. We will be conducting research and analyzing current approaches to addressing harmful social norms in the political sphere, to better understand how they are manifested and to identify the key levers to mitigate them. We'll be also implementing national surveys to measure the prevalence of violence against women office holders and political candidates, both online and offline, and convene national dialogues to take forward lessons learned and recommendations. I'll end there. We look forward to engaging in this important initiative, and we hope to have the support of many of you in the room, and I look forward to the interactive session soon to hear about all the feedback that you have, ideas about social norms change. I'm really looking forward to hearing that, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Now I'd like to introduce Rubidzai Kamalaspika Nundu. Yeah, thank you. We convened on that before, I got it. Okay. Principal Advisor for Democracy and Inclusion at International IDEA. Ms. Campos Vicanundo, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Christine. You are brilliant.
Thank you.
Because for the first time, you're one of the few people that have not mutilated my complicated name.
It's beautiful.
Such a very complicated African name. But I'm very blessed and pleased to be here and to be part of this initiative. And what I want to do is build on the evidence and some of the nuances that already have been unpacked, starting from the address by Chiara, the EU Commissioner, Sandra, Julie, Massimo, and I'm sure definitely Paddy and Emilia will still build on those elements. What do we do about this elephant in the room, which we have identified? Over the years, we've been talking about the backsliding, we've been talking about making progress, maybe very minimal progress, but then we backslide like 10 steps, even 20 steps back. What is causing that? And at the center of it all, we have reports, and Julie was pointing out to very key information about perceptions, mindsets, and it all boils down to social norms, and all tied up to the socialization process. So if we're going to tackle those issues, it means we need to really unpack and challenge the preservation of patriarchy, because that's the end game. And it's going to cause us to engage in very uncomfortable dialogues and discussions, because patriarchy, it's a system of preserving privilege and power. And the reason why we see the manifestation of technology facilitated gender-based violence, for instance, and violence against women broadly, it's not because of IT. It's simply manifesting what is happening in our societies and communities and the world at large. So how do we go head on in a way that can give us transformative changes that we would like to see? And that's the challenge which we are hoping we can embark on in this journey under the WYDE program, but in a systematic way, not in ad hoc discussions, but in systematic ways and also in a sustainable way. So one of the things I want to put forward, which we are conceptualizing and would like to take through the implementation of the WYDE project, is the very fact that social norms intersect with women's ability to access, participate, be represented, and the need for transformation or transformative approaches, which I have coined access, participation, and representation, transformational approach. So we are hoping that we'll be able to engage in interventions that look at the pillar of access. How are social norms intersecting with the ability for women to come in? I know we have gender quotas, and we still continue to work on the work around gender quotas or temporary special measures. Though I always say, how are they going to be temporary if gender inequalities are remaining? But I know it's a tactful way to make sure that we gain leverage and mileage for buying. Otherwise, we'll also have a lot of pushback about the implementation and adoption of quotas. So how do we deal with issues around the gamut of access? That also the social norms, when they intersect with issues around access, just for women to be able to consider themselves as candidates because of the mindsets, because of the perceptions, the attitudes, and the practices, but also the rigid gender roles and responsibilities in our societies. Because remember, there's a whole burden of unpaid care work, which women are responsible for. How then can they start considering themselves to be candidates for positions of power in decision making? And when women have managed, and I'm saying women in all their diversity, please, when they are there, what are the interplays of social norms in terms of their participation and representation? Why do we see women being targeted, in terms of hateful speech, in terms of abuse, in terms of attacks and everything to prevent their effective participation and representation. Because you can participate, but representation is another thing. Do you have a voice and influence? How is that really happening, and how do we untangle social norms and see the effect that they have in their reality in order to make sure we can reach the required participation and representation in democratic rights for all women in all their diversity. And then the transformative part, it's about changing the unequal gender power relations in totality, the dynamics. To what extent, why should we be still seeing statistics that shows that the global average, women are empowered to be at 60% of their potential? Why can't women be empowered at 100%? Why is it that? And I'm posing these questions because this is what we are hoping to interrogate and engage, and by also engaging men and boys, as already said by the other partners. It's not just engaging them to see the benefits of gender equality in terms of how it benefits women, but how they lose out, that it's a cost for them also to be able to exercise their full, manhood. When you're told you can't change a diaper because you are a man, you can't be at home whilst your husband, your partner, or whoever is in a meeting. Those are some of the things that we need to show also, that engaging men is about them realizing that it's a cost to societies, it's a cost to communities and the world at large. And therefore, we are taking on this challenge to say, how can we be able to unpack the preservation of patriarchy in terms of the social norms, the rigid, harmful social norms. Not all of them are bad, but they're harmful ones, which we see they keep holding women's empowerment and gender equality at back. So we need to progress with the realization that we are not dealing with technical or theoretical issues, but these are issues that people have entrenched because we have been socialized and we are born into them and we live them and we practice them. So there's a lot of transformation that needs to happen. So we believe with the access, participation and representation and transformative approach, which we will hope to build further in terms of the pillars and components with all the partners and all of you across the world, we can be the agents of the change that we would like to see. Thank you.